Hi class, hi Dr. Sperano. I am Sarah. It's nice to meet all of you. So for my homework number 2, I created a writing prompt journal. And I took the 10 words that I wrote my paper about for homework 1. My words are motivation, perfectionism, forgiveness, inspiration, empathy, reflection, creativity, patience, purpose, and curiosity. The journal itself is about 50 pages that the writer fills in. There's some areas where you can color, there's some areas that are left blank so that you can doodle or write more or just kind of, do what inspires you. You can also just leave them blank. And then in the back I have 6 pages that I filled in, a sample sort of from the journal for motivation, empathy, creativity, and inspiration to kind of give you a feel for what it would look like once it's filled in. So the first 2 pages are sort of an introduction. They give you some general tips on how to use the journal. And then we get right into motivation. So this is the first page. You can see there's an area to color. There's an area where you can list your top 10 motivators. They don't have to be positive things. One of mine was stress. Stress motivates me. And then this section asks you to talk about your list, talk about why it's important, talk about how, if anything is negative, how you can change it, and create better habits around motivation. This one talks about what your priorities are a little bit and how you can address them and really get motivated to sort of do what you want to do with your life. This section is perfectionism. And this first page says, perfection, this is not. This drawing is a lot rougher than some of the others that I did for the book, and that's on purpose. The quote here says, perfectionism is internalized oppression, and that's by Gloria Steinem. If you don't know who she is, look her up. She's pretty incredible, although a very polarizing figure. So over here it kind of talks about what that quote means, and then it asks you to look at some other quotes by famous people. There's Salvador Dali here. You want to acknowledge the emotional response that you have to each quote and then sort of unpack that. Consider how you could apply it to your life. There's Maria Shriver, another, and then it asks you to respond to the Gloria Steinem quote. So you can see just little doodles in the margins here, the quotes themselves, and then area to kind of write in. And then I want you to talk about what that first quote meant to you, because I think it's really important. I think that people tend to want to do things so perfectly that sometimes they get lost in what they're doing. So the next section is forgiveness. There's another drawing, another quote. And then in this section, I ask you to write a letter to someone who's wronged you. Express your anger, your frustration, tell them what they did, tell them how it made you feel, and tell them the emotional response that you're still having. Down here, I ask you to go back and read the letter. And then I ask some questions. What are you holding on to? Does the person that you wrote this letter to even know that you're upset with them? How can you let it go? What kind of changes in your life would happen if you did? Then I ask you to write a letter of forgiveness to yourself. We all have things that we beat ourselves up about. And I want you to choose one of those and forgive yourself for it. And that sounds simple on the surface, but when you really start to think about it, it's pretty profound. And then just some general questions about forgiveness. What do you gain when you forgive? What do you lose when you forgive someone? Is there something that you lose? How does forgiveness impact world politics? I think that one is especially interesting right now. What's the hardest part of forgiving? What's the best part of forgiving? And then we move on to inspiration. Another drawing, another quote. And then I mentioned that a lot of these sections have little doodles in the margin where you can color them in and kind of think about what you want to say. But this section does not, because it's about inspiration, and creativity is the same way. I want you to be inspired to, by the blank page, to kind of draw or write your own things. This one asks you to analyze a quote, and then it asks you, you know, once you write this, what did you learn from it? Okay. Sorry, this thing's a little awkward. Over here, I want you to create a bucket list. It doesn't have to be practical. It doesn't have to be something you can actually achieve, just something that you want to achieve. Over here, I give some writing prompts for stories. Write a short story, or write a sentence, or draw a picture. The first one is, I walked into the room, sure that she'd be there. Instead, I found, and then you finish the sentence and you finish the short story. The next one is, it was a cold, dark night, suddenly. And then that goes on for, for a couple pages. And then we get to empathy. For empathy, I've got a big old anatomically correct, mostly anatomically correct, human heart to color in. And then over here, I ask you to describe a time that you needed empathy, and who gave it to you and how it made you feel. And then below that, to describe a time when you needed empathy from someone and you didn't receive it, and how it changed your perspective and how it made you feel. Because sometimes what we don't get is as important as what we do get. Over here, I ask you to describe a time where you practiced empathy with someone, and then a time, because I feel like it's important to acknowledge our mistakes, a time when we didn't practice empathy and we should have. Over here, a time when you needed to be empathetic with yourself, and how you did that. And did you do it? Did you allow yourself the kindness that you showed to other people? How it would have made a difference if you'd just been kinder, if you'd just been more understanding of yourself, and how you can sort of start to practice self-empathy moving forward. The next section is reflection. Another fun drawing, another fun quote. I tried to put quotes because I feel like you know, these people that I pulled from, they know more about these subjects than I do. I'm just a student. These people are professionals and, you know, writers and really big figures in the world. And I feel like their opinions are important because they're experts in their field, or because they have really interesting things to say. And I feel like when we hear quotes from other people, we can sort of say, well, I agree with that, or I don't agree with it, or I agree with part of it, but here's where I would have gone with it. And I think it just gets our minds thinking. So we start with self-reflection. How have you changed from the person that you were 5 years ago, and then the person that you were 10 years ago, and how you think you'll be in 5 years, or where you want to be in 5 years, and how does that forecast that you've created make you feel? Are you satisfied with it? Are you dissatisfied? And if you're dissatisfied, then where else in the book should you be going to sort of pull it together? The next page, the next 2 pages actually, I ask you to choose 3 photographs from a time in your life that's important to you. Describe who you were at that point, where you were, what you were doing, and how it makes you feel, why it's meaningful to you. And then I've left a bunch of big, you know, open space here so that you can post the photographs and sort of talk about them underneath. And then some more prompts. Reflect on one of the greatest life lessons you've learned. How did it change your perspective, and how did it impact your life, for better or for worse? There you go. And then I ask you to choose another area of focus, you know, work, love, friendship, health, creativity, and talk about how reflection can help you navigate that area that you choose to talk about. And I ask what you can gain from looking back on past experiences, and how does reflecting on those experiences then propel you forward. The next section is creativity. I gave you one coloring sheet here, but then everything else I want you to do. It's all about creativity. It doesn't have to be perfect. We're letting perfectionism go. And I gave you an area to play a word association game. So whatever the word cat makes you think of, don't think about it. Just jot down whatever comes to mind. Draw cat, write the word meow, binoculars, empowerment. I gave you a couple more words over here to sort of talk about, sort of play the word association game. And then some deeper thinking questions. Who or what inspires creativity in you? What were you inspired to create as a child? Because I think that when we go back and we look at who we were as children, we can really get a sense of who our inner selves truly are. Kids are so unfiltered. And I think that that's important to be in touch with as you're focusing on how you can become a more creative person. And then I asked for a list of 10 things you enjoy doing. And when was the last time you did them? Because so many of us get caught up in school and work and life that we forget to take time to do these things for ourselves. And then I want you to write a letter to your inner critic, the person who tells you that you can't be creative, or, the cat that you drew on the page before wasn't good enough. Write a letter to that inner critic and really tell them off. Like, say, you don't get to control me, and your opinion is your opinion, but maybe somebody else thinks I'm really great, And then I ask if you could create something for the rest of your life. What would it be? For me, it would be stuff like this. It would be writing. It would be words. And I'm in a good profession for that because I'm a writer. The next section is patience. And so I've drawn sort of a maze here. I don't know if you can see that. Giving you another fun quote to think about. And then I ask you to reflect on a quote by Lao Tzu. And I talk about my grandmother a little bit. My grandmother used to tell me that patience was my special project because I am not by nature a patient person. So I ask you to sort of tell my grandma what you think about that. There's a couple more pages here. What makes you feel peaceful? A time that you've been rewarded for being patient with someone that you love. Another little doodle. And then I ask you to make lists of situations where you need more patience and situations where maybe you need to let patience go and make a change in your life. The next section is purpose. And we make a list, several lists actually. Your 5 core values, the 3 things that excite you, what was your childhood dream job? All of these questions are designed to sort of have a running theme, to sort of have you talk about something that you love. And at the end, I want you to look over your answers, and if there is a theme in there, then there it is. That's your purpose. Curiosity is the last one. Put a cat, because if life hands you a dead cat joke, then you run with it. And then I ask, what were you curious about as a kid? Plan a trip to a place that you've always been curious about. How do you prompt curiosity in yourself? What other personality traits do you associate with curiosity? You can see that the cat theme continues because I am nothing if not committed. Is there such a thing as being too curious? How do you describe curiosity? What do people who are curious look like? And then just very quickly, because I am over time, these are the pages that I filled in. So you can see I colored in motivation. I listed my 10 motivators. I said things like my kids, money, pleasing other people, food. I'm very food motivated. A sense of responsibility, promise of reward, praise. Over here, I answered the questions, and then I wrote about how I could make change to be better motivated. Colored in, actually I had my kid color in empathy here because I wanted this to be a family project. Over here, I talk about empathy. I talk about when my daughter died, the people who were empathetic with me when I really needed it. And I talk about 2 people who were especially helpful to me and my family. And then I talk about some people who I thought were really good friends who just kind of fell off the radar when my kid died. Over here, I play the word association game a little bit. You can see I drew a couple things. I didn't draw a couple things. I associate Brazil with butt lifts, and I'm not drawing a butt lift for you guys, so don't ask. And the last page is inspiration. Again, I had my kid color this in because I wanted to kind of show what other people would do. So that's my writing prompt journal. I am Sarah Powers-Rivera. I hope you enjoyed it, and it's been a pleasure to be in class with all of you. Thank you.